Hi everyone, so today we're going to learn the last thing that we're going to work on in terms of inequalities. We're going to spend 3 whole days on this for one Khan Academy assignment, which you'll get next week, so don't feel super stressed when you do today's lesson, because once we work through some more examples, it will slowly start to make more sense. Today I'm just going to show you what they are and do 2 examples, but next week we'll do many, so don't feel stressed quite yet. So we're going to be working today and then the next couple days on compound inequalities. Okay, so let's first define what a compound inequality is. So a compound inequality is one or more inequalities that we want to solve at the same time. And so that's kind of like the simplified version of it. And so you're going to see it kind of like x is greater than 4 and x is greater than 3, or x is greater than 4 or x is greater than 3. So when you see the and in between the inequalities, you're going to be looking at the solution to both inequalities. So it has to satisfy both. So like if it might be in between 2 numbers, or there could be no solutions, but we'll get to those next week. You don't need to worry about those yet. And then the other one is it could be or, and that would be solution to either inequality. Okay, so how you solve these, and I'll go through some examples once I give you the 2 steps. So step 1 is you would solve each component separately. And then your last step is you're going to graph on a number line. And the graphing part is to figure out how many solutions are possible, whether or not it's every single value or values between 2 numbers or no values. And so the only way that you can figure that out really is if you, or the easiest way to do it, I would say, is to graph on the number lines. That way you're not trying to figure it out in your head. So let's work through the first example. So our inequality is 2 plus x is less than 5, and negative 1 is less than 2 plus x. So here, we're trying to figure out what solutions fit both of these inequalities. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solve both of them. So here, I get x is less than 3. And then here, I get negative 3 is less than x, or x is greater than negative 3. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to solve. I'm going to show this by graphing. And the graph is going to help me identify what my answers are. And I'm starting at negative 4, and I'll go up to positive 4. Okay, so let's first graph this one here. And so x is less than, not less than or equal to, but less than 3. So we're going to do an open circle. And I'm going to do an arrow going this direction. So x has to be less than 3. And then my next one is x has to be greater than negative 3. So here's negative 3. So when I graph, what I can see where there's the overlap is that x has to be between, the only thing that satisfies both of these equations is x is between -3 and 3. And we could also write this a couple different ways. So we could say x is greater than 3 and, x is less than 3 and x is greater than -3. Or you could see this written a different way, and that's going to be x in the center is going to be less than 3 and greater than -3. And we looked at this kind of thing earlier last week, but those are the 3 different ways that you might see the solution to this written out. Okay, let's do one more just to have that example done. So let's do 7. Let's do it on the second page. 7 is greater than 2x plus 5, or 7 is less than 5x minus 3. So again, we're looking for what values of x are going to satisfy these two inequalities, and it can be either or. And so with some of these, you'll just see when we solve these. So we'll subtract 5. We're going to solve each one separately. So let's start with this one. We'll subtract 5 from both sides. And that cancels. And I get 2 is greater than 2x. Now I divide both sides by 2. And I get 1 is greater than x, or x is less than 1. Okay, on this side, I'm going to start by adding 3 to both sides. And so here, I get 10 is less than 5x. Divide both sides by 5. And I get 2 is less than x, or x is greater than 2. Okay, so now I'm going to graph these. And here, remember, it's an or. And let's just go, let's do -4 to 4 again. Okay, so let's graph this one first. X is less than 1. And then this one here, x is greater than 2. Okay, so here we can see that x has to be less than 1 or greater than 2, so it can't be anything in here. Now, let's say, for example, that this was and instead. There's no overlap here, so technically to this inequality, if this said it has to satisfy both of these, there would be no solutions to this inequality because there's no overlap in my inequalities. But since it's or, I can have anything below 1 or anything above 2, but nothing in between. So this is why it's helpful to graph, because if this was and, you might just assume that this is your final answer, when really, if it were and, your final answer would be no solutions. So here you would see your answer as x is less than 1 or x is greater than 2. So that would what you would see when you're choosing Khan Academy answers. This is kind of what you would click on since they would be multiple choice for you. Again, next week we're going to look in depth at or solutions and solutions before I assign you the Khan Academy, so that hopefully after we look at both of those kind of problems, you'll feel confident going into your 4 problems in Khan Academy.